Let's see, we are on Yudayim base, 17b. Okay. No, really, at the bottom of the last line on Yudayim. The Gemara was discussing. We had a discussion of when does not kosher schach, how much not kosher schach would split a sukkah. So the Gemara said that if you have not kosher schach running across the middle of the sukkah, if it's 4 tfachim of not kosher schach, that size wide. You have 4 tfachim wide. Let's say this is the sukkah. You have a wall on the right, a wall on the left, a wall on the back. Let's say we're dealing with a 3-walled sukkah. So if you have a 3-walled sukkah and you have schach in the middle, that's not kosher, and the schach that's in the middle that's not kosher is 4 tfachim wide. So the Gemara said that would be the size that would split the sukkah. And if you want to send to the group, that would be the size of schach that would split the sukkah. Now, and it would split the sukkah and make it into 2 sukkahs. Then the Gemara said that was from the yeshiva of Rav. And Shmuel and one of the rabbis questioned this, Rabbah questioned this opinion. And Rabbah said that 4 tfachim in the middle would not be enough to split a sukkah. That was the opinion of Rabbah. Rabbah said you would need to have 4 amot of not kosher schach to go ahead and split a sukkah. That was the opinion of Rabbah. So having 4 tfachim in the middle, it's not kosher schach. You can't sit under the 4 tfachim that's not kosher schach, but it wouldn't make the sukkah. It wouldn't break the sukkah into two. Right? That was the opinion of Rabbah. So Rabbah would say, in order for you to go ahead and to split a sukkah into 2, if you have 4 amot of not kosher schach in one spot, those 4 amot, being that it's 4 amot wide, it's around 7 feet by 7 feet, that would go ahead. It's 7 feet wide, and it goes all across 7 feet wide, and it goes all across the whole sukkah. That will break a sukkah. That was the opinion of Rabbah. And Rabbah challenged Rav, the yeshiva of Rav's opinion, and they challenged him back, because one of the things he said was, if we have a halach, we have an idea, a halacha about empty space. The Mishnah stated that having empty space, 3 tfachim of empty space, that would split the sukkah. 3 tfachim empty space. Good morning, Max. 3 tfachim of empty space. If you have 9 to 12 inches of empty space running across the sukkah, that would disconnect the walls of the sukkah from each other, and that will create 2 different structures. And Rabbah questioned the yeshiva of Rav by saying, if you have a space that, if you have an area of the sukkah which is less than 4 tfachim of not kosher schach, if you have, let's say, 3.5 tfachim of not kosher schach, right? So you're going to say that doesn't split a sukkah, correct? But the yeshiva of Rav that said 4 tfachim would split a sukkah. So he asked, if you have 3.5 not kosher schach, and adjacent to that you have, let's say, less than 3 tfachim of empty space. So you're going to say they don't join together. The let's say tefach of empty space, right adjacent to 3.5 tfachim of not kosher schach. So you've gone over, according to you, you have a total of over, you have more than 4 tvachim of something that's not kosher. If you will join the two together, you have something that's more than 4 tvachim of not kosher right adjacent to each other. So you should join them together. That was the question that Rabbah questioned. And the strength of his question was because empty space, empty airspace is so powerful that you agree that empty airspace of 3 tvachim would split a sukkah, which is stronger than not kosher schach that you hold. You need 4 tvachim of not kosher schach to split a sukkah. So if you hold 4 tvachim not kosher schach to split a sukkah, 3 tvachim of airspace splits a sukkah. So airspace is stronger than not kosher schach. Because to have not kosher schach to split a sukkah, you have to have, let's say, 4 tvachim of metal that's not kosher in order to split a sukkah. But if you have 3 tvachim of empty space, that would also split a sukkah. So why is it when you have 3.5 tvachim of not kosher schach, and right next to the not kosher schach, you have a certain amount of airspace, which makes it at least 4 tvachim total between the 3.5 not kosher schach and the empty airspace? That empty airspace is so powerful, it should join together with the 3.5 tvachim of not kosher schach. So they shot back to him and they said, okay, but according to you, you say you need 4 amot in order to invalidate a sukkah, which means to say in order for a sukkah to be considered 2 different structures, that it's not one structure, you need 4 amot of not kosher schach running across the sukkah. So what happens if you have less than 4 amot running across the sukkah? So you're going to say less than 4 amot will not split the sukkah in half. It will be not, that spot would not be kosher. You can't sit under that spot, but it wouldn't split the sukkah in half. Good morning. So if you can't split the sukkah in half, less than 4 amot, but if you have let's say you have a drop less than 4 amot of not kosher schach, and next to that you have empty space. So why shouldn't you join that empty space to the not kosher schach, to the three amot and 3? Let's say you have 3 amot or 4 amot minus a tefach of not kosher schach, and then you have a tefach of airspace. You should join them together. That was the challenge that they shot back at Rabbah. The same way you're asking we should join by us, why don't you join by you? So to that, now we're on the bottom of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, and the art scroll is 17. Sorry, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, yes, and the art scroll is 17a3. So he says the following. We're in the last paragraph. And I said to them, and I said back, Haimai, you can't compare my case, my situation, of taking a drop less than Dalet Amot of not kosher schach to join empty airspace adjacent to it. You can't compare it to less than 4 tvachim of not kosher schach and an empty airspace, a little bit small empty airspace, which will make it over 4 tvachim total. Why? According to me, that I say that the shear, that the size that would invalidate a sukkah, that would split a sukkah in half, is 4 amot of not kosher schach. Now we'll turn the page. Now we're on 17b. Mishum shi'ura v'lav shi'uhu. 4 amot is the shear to invalidate the sukkah, and less than 4 amot is not the shear. We have a certain size that's given halacha l'Moshe b'Sinai that breaks the sukkah in half, having 4 amot. Nothing to do with dofen akuma. It's not because I need the wool to go ahead and turn and move and to create the sukkah, to create that wall, to move the wall. Even if we don't have the concept of dofen akuma, as long as there's no 4 amot together of not kosher schach, it doesn't separate the sukkah. It doesn't separate that side, that area from the other area adjacent to it. So therefore, if this is the wall on my right, and I have a ceiling right next to it, and then I have a wall in the back, and then I got a wall over here, I have no wall in front, can we count this wall is this wall connected to the other two walls to make it three walls? So I say, as long as now. So you say because of Dofen Akuma, that's what the wall moves. That's what connects this wall to the other two walls, and therefore we have three walls. As long as the schach, as long as the not kosher schach that's close to the wall does not equal 4 amot. As long as that ceiling is not 4 amot wide, you said Dofen Akuma does the trick. I say it's not because the wall turns. Even if there wouldn't be such a halacha Dofen Akuma, the reason why that's considered a kosher wall is because as long as the schach does not equal 4 amot of not kosher schach, it's still considered connected to this structure. And therefore, if in the middle of the sukkah, I have 3 amot, I have more than 4 tvachim of not kosher schach. Why? Which you can't apply the rule of Dofen Akuma, because it's not near the wall. It's in the center of the sukkah. I have not kosher schach, more than 4 tvachim plus 4 tvachim plus. It doesn't split the sukkah in half. I can't sit under that sukkah, that spot, but I can still count the walls. That's what he says. So he says it's all about shiura velo shiura. It's all about having the size. So high lav shiuru. And if I have less than 4 amot of not kosher schach in one spot, in the center of the sukkah, I don't have the size, I did not meet the size to invalidate the sukkah, to split the sukkah in half. And kivan de lo shavi shurayul hadadi, and since the size of schach pasul to cut a sukkah in half is different than the size of airspace, not kosher schach, you need 4 amot, according to me, Rabbah. Airspace 3 tvachim, so they don't join together. They work independent. They have no connection with each other. One is not kosher schach, and one is airspace. You want to go ahead and join airspace to not kosher schach. They have nothing in common, so to speak. They are totally different. They work differently, as we see from their shiurim, from their sizes, and therefore you can't join you can't join in. You know what it's like in a certain sense. You want to go ahead. The Torah says you can't eat not kosher food. And let's say in order to get a malkut, you have to eat a kesayis of not kosher food. So let's say a guy is a nazir, and let's say there's a certain amount of grapes that he would have to eat, most probably in order to violate, to get lashes. Are you going to tell me that you're going to join the size of, let's say he has less than that amount of grapes, together he has less than the amount of not kosher food. Are you going to join the grapes, the grape with the not kosher food? They're two different, they work differently. So that's how he's looking over here. He's looking that since they work differently, there's different sizes, and they're obviously very different. There is it's very, the contrast between empty space and not kosher schach are like two different worlds, right? One is 3 tvachim, and one is 4 amot. And amma could have an average amma 6 tvachim. So one is 3 tvachim and one is 6 times 4. So it's 24 to 3. So they're obviously so different, airspace and not kosher schach. So since the airspace and not kosher schach is totally different than each other, now you want to go ahead and say, let's join airspace to not kosher schach, right? That was your question that you asked me. You challenged me, Rabbah. You challenged me, Rabbah, and you said, Rabbah, why, according to you, when you have less than 4 amot of not kosher schach, you have 3 amot and 7/8 of not kosher schach? You say that's good, and even if I have an 1/8 or more than an eighth of empty airspace adjacent to it, you don't join them together. Of course, I don't join them together because they work differently. They're totally different. They're different sizes, different shapes, different sizes. It's not, you can't connect the two. Is that clear, everybody? But Rabbah says, but you know why I'm challenging you? But according to you, the amitu that you say, shir mishum haflaga. You say the shir, the reason for if you look at the Rashi, shir mishum haflaga, you have the Rashi, Rashi is right by the white small lines on the left side when the lines get small. The four tfachim, the kamnitu, that you say, good morning, Simon. You say that there's such a concept that 4 tfachim already separates the sukkah. 4 tfachim of not kosher schach separates the sukkah. Lo tanan lahu b'matita l'nyan schach pasul. We don't have that recorded in our Mishnah regarding schach pasul 4 tfachim. We only have recorded in our Mishnah the idea of 3 tfachim of empty airspace invalidates the sukkah. We didn't have anything about 4 tfachim in middle of a sukkah invalidates the sukkah. Amen. Where do you know this from? Where did you get this svara of 4 tfachim splits the sukkah in the middle? Atun, hainu taimachu, your reason, Rashi says, mishum de bechol makom, all over, chashuvim dalet tfachim. 4 tfachim is considered important, significant. Liot makom chashuv la'atzmo. It has its own designation of its own place. Just like if you want to create a private property and public property, if you put up walls and you have an area inside of 4 tfachim, 10 tfachim walls, and the area inside is 4 tfachim, that creates a separate space. Because 4 tfachim is considered already 4 tfachim is 12 to 16 inches, already considered a significant space. So therefore, because you found the concept that 4 tfachim is considered a significant space, you say this is also considered a significant place. And you say it separates this sukkah, it creates a separation, a chatzitza in the sukkah, that when you have a space of 4 tfachim of not kosher schach, it separates it, and there's no wall that's supporting this not kosher schach because it's separated between that side and the other side. Mali, what's the difference? What's the difference if it's separated? If with 3 tfachim, and what's the idea of 3 tfachim? 3 tfachim also is the idea of it separates, right? Having empty space of 3 tfachim, that empty space disconnects the spot that's right next to it from the spot that's right near, right outside of it. So the same way 3 tfachim is considered a separation. If I have 3 tfachim of empty space, it separates between the right side of the empty space and the left side of the empty space. So the 4 tfachim of the not kosher schach also works as separating from the right side to the left side, considered a significant spot. So therefore, there's room to say we should join those two together because they're working both from the same concept of a space that's called a significant space that should separate. So that's what the Gemara is saying. But back to the Gemara. We are on 17a 17b, 1. But according to you, that you say that is because it creates a separation, the space of not kosher schacha for tvachim. So mali is spalig mischach pasul. What's the difference if the separation is done through 4 tvachim of not kosher schach? Mali is spalag mischach pasul va'avir. What's the difference if you're separating using the not kosher schach together with the empty space, which totals as an area of 4 tvachim? Now you have a spot in one place of 4 tvachim. Yes, it's not 4 tvachim of not kosher schach. It's 3 3/4 of not kosher schach. But together with that airspace that's next to it, it's gone over the top, and now you have a space of 4 tvachim or more of total of not kosher schach with airspace, so they should join together. And since they don't join together, therefore, he said that therefore that you can't learn that way, and you have to say that the only way something will split a sukkah is only if you have 4 amot together in one spot of not kosher schach. And 4 tvachim doesn't do the trick to split the sukkah. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye shoots back, meaning he says, L'manami. He says, you're telling me that we can't join not kosher schach together with empty airspace because they are not connected. Their shiurim, their sizes work totally independent of each other, and therefore you can't connect them. So he says, but I'll show you that they do work. They are similar. How? It is true that their sizes are not the same when it comes to a sukkah gedolah. When you deal with a very large, we're on now 17b1 on the right top. Nihi nami is when you have a large sukkah, it's totally different. You need 4 amot to split the sukkah of not kosher schach according to Rabbah, and you need 4 tvachim and 3 tvachim of airspace. But milo shave shurayu b'sukkah ketana. What happens if you have a small sukkah? What's a small sukkah? What's the minimum size of sukkah? 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim, right? That's the size of a small sukkah. Around 7 tvachim, and that's the halacha. A tefach, we said, is 3 to 4 inches. 7 tvachim is anywhere between 21 inches and 28 inches. So if you have, and that's the inside of a sukkah with walls at least 10 tvachim high. And what happens if you have a 7 tefach sukkah? And in the 7 tefach sukkah, you have airspace of 3 tvachim in one spot. So if you have airspace of 3 tvachim in one spot, it's not kosher, the sukkah, because you don't have schach, you don't have an area that's covered of 7 tvachim. You only have 4 tvachim of schach because you have an airspace of 3 tvachim. Now, if you would have the same sukkah, good morning, Dr. Navid. In the same sukkah, you have a 7 tefach sukkah. You have not kosher schach, 4 tvachim of kosher schach, 3 tvachim of not kosher schach. So we say that sukkah is no good. So we see that they have similar sizes. In that case, they both will equally work the same to invalidate a sukkah. So the Gemara's question is, since we see that they have similar size in that situation, so if they're similar in that aspect, so we should say that when it's a large sukkah and you have little less than 4 amot of not kosher schach, and you have less than you have a little less than 3 tvachim of empty airspace next to it, we should say they should join together because they do have similar sizes. Because we found that they do have the same size to invalidate a small sukkah. So if they're similar, that they have a similar size to invalidate a small sukkah, so therefore they have enough in common, the Gemara is asking, that they should go ahead and join together. So, meaning if they're totally different, like we said earlier, until now we said you need 4 amot to split a sukkah in half of not kosher schach, according to Rabbah. And you need 3 tvachim of empty airspace. So they're totally different. And therefore they're totally different. So now you want to go ahead and join them together. We see they're totally different, 2 different worlds. One is a 4 amot world, one is a 3 tefach world. It's working with different. But once you're showing me that they work similarly in a small sukkah, so we should be, the Gemara is asking if they work similarly in a small sukkah, so therefore you should be able to join them together in a large sukkah. And the Gemara says, no, you can't compare the two. Amalei, so they respond to Abaye. Hatam la mishum deshavei shurai ladadihu. The reason when you have, good morning Abraham, good to see you. The reason is not when you go ahead and you have a sukkah, the minimum size sukkah of 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim, right? And you have in the inside, 10 tvachim high walls. And you say if you have a 7 tefach sukkah, and if you have 3 tvachim of empty airspace in one spot, and you have a different sukkah of 7 tvachim, and you have 3 tvachim not kosher schach in one spot, we say that it's not valid. It's not because of the similarities of the item here because the similarities of empty space and the similarities of not kosher schach, that they both have the same similarities, that they're working to invalidate the sukkah because of their size. They have the same size. It's not about them. It's not about that their size, the empty airspace, is invalidating their sukkah. It's not about the not kosher schach is invalidating the sukkah. It's because there's no sukkah here. It's that you went ahead and you placed if you go ahead and you have 4 tvachim of schach, it's not kosher. So it happens to be the reason why you have 4 tvachim of schach is because you have 3 tvachim of not kosher schach, or you have 3 tvachim of empty airspace. But so look what the Gemara says. Ella mishum the lesser l'shira the sukkahu. The issue over here is you do not. It's not. You don't have the kosher size of the sukkah. It's not about that. That it's the 3 tvachim of airspace invalidates a sukkah. It's not about 3 tvachim of not kosher schach is invalidating the sukkah. It's not that. It's only about if you're not able to apply the principle of lavut, if you can't apply the principle of, let's say you would need 100 tvachim of not kosher schach to invalidate a sukkah. And let's say you would need 5 tvachim of airspace. The reason why a sukkah that has empty airspace of 3 tvachim in one spot doesn't work, it's not because 3 tvachim invalid splits a sukkah. It has nothing to do with splitting a sukkah. It's not because when you have 3 tvachim of not kosher schach in the sukkah of 7 tvachim, it's the not kosher schach that's invalidating the sukkah. It's that you don't, and that's splitting a sukkah. It's nothing to do with splitting a sukkah. It's all about I don't have the materials here to make a sukkah kosher. In order to make a sukkah kosher, I need, let's say, 7 tvachim of kosher schach. Let's say we don't have any halacha even independent of the halacha of splitting a sukkah of whatever. What's the size of not kosher schach? What's the size of empty airspace? Independent of those halachot, let's say they have the reason why the sukkah is not kosher when I have 3 tefachim of empty airspace is because I don't have 7 tefachim of schach. It's not because, you know what, 3 tefachim invalidates a sukkah. Has nothing to do with 3 tefachim of empty airspace invalidating a sukkah. Even if you need 1,000 tefachim of empty airspace to split a sukkah in half, it's still, this sukkah wouldn't be kosher because I don't have 7 tefachim of schach. And even if I would need 10,000 tefachim, 10,000 amot of not kosher schach to invalidate a sukkah, the reason why the sukkah is not kosher if I have 3 tefachim of not kosher schach out of 7 is because I don't have 7 tefachim of kosher schach. It has nothing to do, it's not because the airspace and the not kosher schach are similar to each other. It's just about I don't have the basic makeup of a kosher sukkah. That's
Rabbi, you need continuous 7 tefachim of sukkah for it to be kosher.
If you have the laws of lavud working, so the laws of lavud would definitely see lavud would work when you have for sure by empty airspace the lavud would work, right? If you have empty airspace, let's say you have 7, you have a sukkah, you have schach, and you have let's say 2 tefachim of schach, and then you have an empty space of a tefach. Then you have 2 tefachim of schach, and then you have an empty space of a tefach, right? Or something like that. Even though the empty space we consider like it's closed. So you would not need, let's say, 7 tefachim of actual schach in that case.
Got it.
Now, so that's what the Gemara says. You can't compare the case of the small sukkah you can't compare that case because the small sukkah, it's the reason why they both would work to invalidate the sukkah is because of there's something wrong in the sukkah. The sukkah is not meeting its measurements. It's like what are you going to say? If both things, let's say if both things will equal that you're missing walls. It's not about it's not about this size that's invalidating it. It's not about this is splitting the sukkah. So that's what the Gemara says. And now the Gemara shoots back. You're telling me, you're saying, Rava is saying, when 2 things have different sizes, you can't join the 2 different sizes together, right? Rava says, what's the size for not kosher schach to invalidate a sukkah? Rava's opinion is 4 amot. You need 4 amot of not kosher schach to split a sukkah in half, right? Of course, less than 4. If you have 4 tefachim, you can't sit under that spot. But to say that it separates a sukkah into 2 different structures, you need 4 amot, whether on the side or in the middle. That is Rava's opinion. And Rava says 3 tefachim of empty space would also split a sukkah. But since the 3 tefachim of empty space is so much different than 4 amot there's so many that the shiurim, their sizes are different. You can't join them together. And therefore, if you have a little less than 4 amot of not kosher schach next to less than 3 tefachim of empty airspace, and now with the total in math, you got now 4 amot plus of empty airspace and not kosher schach. But since you don't have the 4 amot of not kosher schach in one spot, you don't join the empty airspace with the not kosher schach. That is the opinion of Rabbah. Why can't they join? Because they have different sizes. Different sizes don't mix. They can't join. So the Gemara questions this premise, this idea that you said. Because I'll show you, I have a precedent that when you have 2 different things, 2 different items that work with different shiurim, different sizes, they do join together. And if they join together over there, so why shouldn't they join together over here? The Gemara says, V'hatnan, we learned it in Mishnah. The Mishnah is a Mishnah Kalim where it discusses different sizes, different materials in order for these items to receive contamination. And we're talking about, let's say, contamination of madres. There's certain halachot of the Torah that someone who is a zav or a zava, let's say someone who has certain types of unusual discharges, or let's say a lady who is an idah, the item that she sits on will receive the same level of contamination of her herself, which means, let's say the woman or the man who is a zav has a status of an av hatuma. He's the father, because the tumah began from him, right? He's tameh or she's tameh. Usually, when someone's tameh, av hatuma, when it touches something else, the item becomes a rishon tumah, becomes a rishon, the first level. First level tumah contamination has different laws. It's much weaker than an av, than a dad. The first level contamination cannot make a person tameh. If someone comes in contact with the first level contamination, meaning there's the dad, and then we'll call it the rishon is like the first son. The first son, the child, is not like the dad. And the child cannot make a utensil tameh. The child cannot make a person tameh. The dad can make a person tameh. The originator can make a person tameh, make utensil tameh. But the chidush, the novelty regarding the chair or the bedding that the zav or the zava, the nidat, but they would sit on, would get the same level of they themselves. They would also become an avatuma. That item that they sit on. That's the special law regarding the utensil that's designated for sitting on will get the same contamination as the woman who is an ida, or as now today, these laws of contamination are not really relevant to us because we're not going into the Beit HaMikdash today, and we're not dealing with truma and things of holiness that would be that would be practical application of some of these laws. But the Gemara says, I'll show you Vatnan. We learned in the Mishnah, Habeged, a garment made out of wool or linen. That's the beged of this Mishnah. Shlosha al shlosha. In order for this garment to receive, there needs to be a certain size what's the size of a garment that people would sit on? What's the size of a cloth that a person would sit on? So 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. Between 9 and 12 inches by 9 and 12 inches. That will be, if it's made out of that material of wool or linen, that will be a beged that will now be able to receive contamination. If this wool or linen beged garment will be less than 3 tvachim, then that's not used for madres. That would not be a tumah. That would not be a contamination that the person would. It's not a size that people would sit on, and therefore it will not receive that contamination of madres. That's what the Gemara says. Habeged shlosha al shlosha. Hasak, a sack, which is a sack, it is, and that type of material, it's a different size that they use to sit on, and that is arba. It's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. But we'll see tomorrow. They're going to have different materials at different sizes, and yet they do join together. So we'll see tomorrow. That's how the Gemara is going to question our story. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining.